Hello, guys, and welcome to the Neil Rennie coaching presentation with Neil Rennie, obviously, on how to get in the best shape of your life. Now, you might have previously seen I done a presentation on first timers prep, but this one is specifically aimed at working with people who generally just want to lose some body fat or potentially work towards a photo shoot. And you'll see the examples of clients that I use are more in that tendency. Now, a lot of this is to do with, yes, scientific application, but also there's a large part about mindset. You know, over my time, over 11 years in the industry, I've worked with hundreds of people working towards this specific goal of just getting in the best shape of your life, but also alongside that, building a mindset that carries you through. So today, we're going to cover quite a few topics that are very, very important in bringing all this together. So from assessing your start point, goal setting, setting up calories, how many macros should you be on, training, cardio, expenditure, lifestyle factors, sleep, tracking progress, and a lot more in between. We're going to touch on things that aren't necessarily in the slideshow as well. So first of all, assessing your start point. This guy here, just for example, actually was Andy. He lived in Dubai in his 40s, got very out of shape, wasn't happy where he was. And over the course of 9 months, as you can see, just an absolutely phenomenal result. So a lot of times people will say they're too old or their job, but if we look at the certain factors, we can always manage it and get there. Some people may be faster, other people it may be a little bit slower, but if you put the effort in and apply these principles, you will get to where you want to be. So considerations when it comes to starting to lose body fat. First of all, like, what is your current calorie intake? That has a big impact, okay? Because we need to know how many calories you're actually currently eating before we can give you some. Are you gaining weight on those calories? Are you losing weight on those calories? How much weight have you lost or gained on the current calorie intake? What does your current output in terms of training, steps look like? Lifestyle and commitments and previous diet history. And this is a big one because a lot of the time, you know, people want to lose, I want to be photo shoot ready in 8 weeks. Maybe they've got 4 stone to lose to do that. Maybe they're working shift work. Maybe they've got 4 kids they're trying to look after. All this will play a role into how long you need to get to that point. Doesn't mean you can't get there, but what is the end goal and what's the time scale? How long do we need to actually get there? So first of all, realistic goal setting. How much weight have you got to lose versus how much time have you actually got, how much time have you got? So obviously the more body fat you have to lose, then the longer that time frame probably needs to be. Sometimes this can be a 2-phase approach as well. So for example, if somebody is sitting, they want to lose 6 stone. Well, that's hard to do in one go, depending on where your current calorie intake is at, depending on your expenditure. So a lot of the time, what we'll do is we'll run a starting fat loss phase. We take off quite a bit of weight, get those habits ingrained that are very, very important, then have a little bit of time in maintenance, build those calories back up, build up metabolic rate, and then go back in and take those last maybe stone to stone and a half. A good example of this is Rob. Again, you can see Rob started with me in January 2023, and this is over the course of just 10 months, and you can see his physique absolutely transformed. He had a fair set of quads on him too there as well, but this was all based around, okay, calorie counting, expenditure, building a very good relationship between the two of us as well, because that's extremely important as a coach-client relationship. So over that period of time, in only 10 months, Rob went from 18 stone down to 13 stone 10 and stood in front of a camera and done a photo shoot, something that he never would have thought when he looked at the guy in the picture on the first starting point. Of that time, we spent 4 months dieting, pulling down calories, increasing expenditure, ingraining all these good habits, followed by 2 months of eating in a small surplus to reset diet fatigue. Because as you start to diet down, things become a little bit slower, a little bit harder, food focus becomes a little bit higher. So we need to reset that. Otherwise, we end up just burning out. Hence why, you know, other people's diet history, people say diets don't work. They do, but there's just smarter ways to do it. And you'll often see people lose a bit, then yo-yo, go back up, and then they're heavier than they started. But if we take these smart approaches to dieting, depending on the time scale, then we can do a lot. So after them 2 months where we reset calories probably went from around 1,800 at the bottom back up to around 2,800 over them months, gained about 1 kilo, 2 kilo back. And then we took off another 4 months of dieting, and this is what the end result was. So obviously phenomenal. In that time as well, when you're getting leaner, you'll be implementing things like refeeds. So it's not always a linear diet. Sometimes we break it up, depending again on how long the time scale is and the amount to lose. Setting up your calories. I'm a huge advocate of using tracking apps. People, you know, sometimes people will be like, I'm not too sure if I want to use that. I eat healthy anyway. You may well eat healthy, but it may not be specific enough to your goal. This is a great tool for education. It's a great tool to understand the value of food and also how much you're eating on a daily basis. And it leaves little room for error, if I'm honest. But first we must establish, okay, what are you currently eating? Once we do that, then we can take that data, get weighing yourself every single day for say a week. What's the body weight done? Has it went up? Has it went down? That will then tell us, okay, if we're at maintenance, in a surplus, or if we're in a calorie deficit. If your weight hasn't moved up and you've been eating 2,500 calories the whole week, then there's a good sign that that is your maintenance intake. And then from there, we can adjust into an appropriate deficit. So that might be, if we're eating 2,500, we're not losing anything, we might go to 2,000 calories, and that should see weight then steadily coming down. Obviously, we also have cardio we can use. We can increase your step count, and that's something we'll talk about a little bit later on. But if you know what your maintenance is, if you know if you're eating this amount of food and it's putting weight on at a regular pace, then we know we need to bring those calories down a little bit more in order to actually be in a deficit. How much of a deficit should you be in? And honestly, this is very individual. There's numerous variables that depend on this. Like, you can go hard and fast, you can go slow and take longer, but you can't go fast for a long time because you will burn out. Inevitably, people burn out. So really what we need to look at is, okay, the time scale and how much we want or need to lose. There's also the psychology of it and the ability to actually adhere to a diet. If you're trying to go really fast and take a lot of weight off very quickly, then that diet is much more aggressive. It's also harsher. And for a lot of people, it's harder to stick to. Again, not for everybody. There's certain times I will use faster diet approaches, especially if I have a good relationship with that client. I understand their psychology and I know they can adhere and push. But often we take a more moderate approach when it comes to it. Work and family commitments as well will play a role in this. So again, like I said at the start, if you have 4 kids, very difficult to do. If your job is shift work, we need to understand that might take a little bit longer. We maybe can't run quite as an aggressive deficit. We maybe need to take 6 months rather than 3 or 4 months to lose that weight. And then what's your previous diet history? If you've had issues surrounding food, issues of yo-yo dieting, it's very unlikely that we're going to be running a very harsh, aggressive deficit. It's more than likely it's going to be a little bit of a slower approach. There may be chances where we can be a bit more relaxed within that diet, but ultimately we're always working towards fat loss in some capacity. What should your macros be? And this is something that people struggle with. For a start, what are macros? Well, macros are the building blocks to your calories. So essentially, when we look at macronutrients, we look at protein, carbs, and fats. Now, alcohol is also a macronutrient. So if you're drinking vodka, which you probably shouldn't be, especially if it's a Wednesday, then there are calories in there. So think, when we look at our basic overview of it, 1 gram of protein equates to 4 calories, 1 gram of carbs equates to 4 calories, 1 gram of fat is 9 calories, 1 gram of alcohol is 7 calories. So what we need to do is really look at prioritizing certain macronutrients sometimes at certain times throughout the day. And I realize this can get a little bit complicated, but the more you look into it and the more you refine it, the better your body composition will be, because it's all well and good. You'll hear James Smith all the time talking about just move more and eat less. And while that is true to a point, in theory, the application is very, very different. And that's what I found. And that's why we get very high level results with people, and they understand it as well. So I tend to really value protein. It's very satiating in terms of actually you feel like you're eating a meal. It fills you up, but also it keeps muscle tissue on. We want muscle tissue for having a body composition. Without being provocative, a lot of people diet down and they look like a melted candle. Our goal is to look good. So I like to keep protein intake up about 1 to maybe 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. Fats, they're important, but as you can see, they're 9 calories per gram. So often people are like, right, I've had nuts, I've had avocados. That's great, but it's also very high in calories, and it's not particularly satisfying. There's not much volume to it. So I tend to have people mostly on around 30 to 50 grams of fat a day. I don't like to drop below 30 because those fats are essential to hormonal support, which is why within females, I tend to run a little bit higher, because often that is impacted slightly as females come down. So it helps keep everything functioning very well. And then the remainder of your calories, I would put towards carbohydrates. And I tend to place those carbohydrates around the sort of training window, pre, post, and intra. That way we're fueling the training and allowing for recovery, and then taking carbs a little bit lower throughout the rest of the day. And I find that's a really good recipe as a general rule to warrant fat loss and keep performance high, because ultimately when we're training, we want to train well, but we want to be in a fat loss period as well, a majority of that day, especially if that is our goal. A case study here, Claire, a good friend of mine, it's actually who I got my dog of as well. So Claire lost 4 stone in 12 months. Again, a phenomenal result from Claire. Her starting calories when she came was 2,300. So that's what we started her on. So she was probably eating more than that, but we started on 2,300. Over the course of that time, We slowly and surely brought calories down to 1,300 calories. Protein intake the whole way through remained at 140 grams, so it's very rare I will change protein intake. Fats never went below 30 grams, and the main really reductions we used was from carbohydrate. So we tried to pull them off as we needed to. Weight training was 4 times a week. Average cardio was around 3 times 30 minutes. Again, we used a little bit more cardio as the calories came lower, so we didn't have to continue to pull calories. And our average step count was of 10K. So what I will say is you've got options when it comes to fat loss, okay? You've got 3 variables really that we're playing with for the most part. We've got calories, we've got expenditure, and then I count cardio as separate to steps. So they're the 3 variables we can play with. What I find with most females is obviously their calorie needs need to be lower because usually they're lighter, maybe don't have as much muscle tissue. So we only want to bring calories so low before that starts becoming very hard to adhere to. So that way we can then increase cardio a little bit more. Where with the meal, so for example, if with me, who's 105 kilos at the top end of my starting point, eating 5,500 calories, I can just pull calories for a long, long time. Now, people might say that's lucky, but the more muscle tissue you have, the more muscle tissue you've earned over that time, then the higher calories you'll be able to diet on, and probably the less cardio too. So let's talk about cardio and steps, how much cardio you should be doing. Both cardio and steps are variables that we can manipulate over time to increase the rate of loss. To answer the question, what should I be on? Again, much like calories, what are you currently on? From this point, we can then establish a baseline and build upon that appropriately. Throughout a fat loss phase, I'll tend to increase steps and cardio as a rate of loss begins to slow down. So this is always something that we're manipulating. I ideally would like you on the least amount of cardio and steps to begin with. And then as we progress or as we want to speed that rate of loss up, we can start using these as tools. So for example, if somebody's coming to me, now they might be eating way overboard or not have much routine to their eating, but their cardio is maybe they're doing 4 or 5 circuit classes a week, their steps are hugely high, then that's not a variable that we can manipulate very well because we then need to do more than that. And at a certain point, again, that becomes hard to stick to. And there's also a time component to cardio and step. Like if you're doing 15,000 steps, that's going to take up a lot of time in your day. So it's finding the right balance for you as an individual. That might be, for me, I'd rather pull calories and then do cardio. For some people, maybe they enjoy doing cardio and we can use that a little bit more. Here is a real world example of it. So this is Eddie, my friend from Newcastle. When Eddie started, he was tracked a daily average step count of 6K and he had no direct cardio. Okay, so that's not a hugely high starting point. So that means then our initial prescription was let's go to 8K and let's go to 3 20-minute cardio sessions. Not very invasive, very doable, but it's going to give us some sort of result and edge fat loss forward. By the end of our fat loss phase, we were doing 11K steps a day and 25 minutes cardio. So you can see how over time that's progressed alongside calories moving about as well. Training applications. Weight training, and I cannot stress this enough, that weight training and building muscle is a key component with any transformation. Any transformation you will see, nobody is just doing cardio if they're with me anyways. Why? It increases your metabolic rate, so it increases your ability to actually eat food and still burn fat and keeps it up there. You can lose fat while eating more, and it creates an actual body composition. Like I joked about earlier, you don't want to look like a melted candle. You want to look like a statue. Okay, so the more sort of weight training you can do, the more muscle we can build, the better. I think people see the gym as a place where some people view the gym, that's a place where I'm going to go and burn fat. No, that is your opportunity to build muscle, which will create an environment for fat loss. But we want to be training with intensity, with intent, and proper execution the whole way through. An example of a training split, again, depending on the person's lifestyle, maybe they can't do 5 days a week, maybe they only do 3 days a week, maybe they only do 2 days a week. But I would say the majority of my clients are on a 3-day split as a minimum, with some going to 4 or 5 days if they can have the time to do so. There's a few examples of training splits for 3 days. So you can do, if it's a 3-day split, you could do 3 full body sessions, or you could do upper, lower, upper. If you're a female, you specifically want to build your glutes, you could do lower, upper, lower. A 4-day split might be 2 lowers with 2 uppers, or push, pull, lower, upper. And a 5-day split, which is, I suppose ideal to some degree, although a 4-day split works very well as well. You could do upper, lower, push, pull, lower. And that's something, if anybody has any questions on, just fire me a message over. Lifestyle factors. This is something, again, that it's a very key component that a lot of people maybe won't discuss as much. But when starting a transformation, these are often overlooked, but probably has the biggest impact on your actual ability to adhere and get it done, to get the job over the line. So consider, what's your environment like? Is it supportive? of your goal. And that doesn't mean somebody saying, well done, happy days, keep going. It means, like, is your life set up that allows for a fast rate of loss, allows you to get super lean, allows you to lose a stone? Is your partner feeding you like chocolate on the side? All these things play a role in adherence. Work commitments. Are you away at the weekends? Do you have to travel for work? Again, consider that. Family and life balance. How much of this is a priority to you? Where does it fall on your list? If it's number one, go all in on it. I bodybuild. During that time that I'm prepping, I'm all in on that goal. Okay, everything else comes second side. For most people, that isn't the case. You probably have work, family. You probably have work. There could be something else in there. So just understand that the higher up the list that is, then the better and quicker that result will be. But it doesn't mean you can't get there. You just have to work around it and find some sort of balance. What's your starting point? Are you very overweight? Do you have no knowledge when it comes to nutrition or training? Okay, I'll probably take a little bit of time to ingrain some of those good habits. And also, what's your stress level like? Stress is a massive, massive factor. In terms of your ability to even sleep, how that affects appetite, how that affects energy levels, your ability to go and train, and even holding water. There's a lot that goes into it. So be realistic when setting goals that are in line with your circumstances. Understanding your priorities and where your energy is best served can make or break you. So where do you want to put the majority of your energy? How much energy and time can you dictate to certain elements of your life that's ultimately going to bring you happiness and fulfillment? Sleep. I'll just move my face down here. Again, like we talked about, this is massively important in terms of recovery, in terms of appetite. A lack of sleep promotes fat storage, increases fatigue, upregulates your appetite, increases stress markers, metabolic markers and issues, and ability to perform optimally. Ideally, I want people sleeping between 7 and 9 hours a night where possible. I want them to establish I go to sleep at this time and I wake up at this time. A lot of people maybe they might get 7 hours, but sometimes they're going to bed at different times, and that'll just throw the routine and structure. Routine and structure when it comes to fat loss is so, so vital. What you want to do is make sure that you have, keeping away from blue light for 60 minutes before bed. So don't be sitting doing emails on your phone all the time. Don't be watching the TV and falling asleep to it. Cold, well-darkened room, all these things alleviate stress, allow you to get into a relaxed state, and allow you to get sleep, which really does have a massive impact on a body transformation. Now, how do you evaluate your progress? Now, a good coach comes in handy, not to give it a plug, but they do, because we know what we're doing. We're experts in that field. We've worked with loads of different people from different backgrounds and have probably came across your issues before. Progress photos are my main indicator. Scale weight is also a very good feedback tool, but it is just feedback. You'll be surprised the amount of people I get that maybe have only lost a couple of kilos in the scales when I'm saying, send me over your progress photos, and the difference is huge because, okay, we've dropped water, we've built some muscle tissue, there's a lot less bloating, things are all working in the background there. So these are really important. And so are things like biomarkers, like your health metrics as well. What's your blood pressure doing? Lots of little things like that. Are we in line with the estimated rate of loss? So a lot of the time I'll have predicted a rate of loss or give somebody a goal, right? In this next week, I would say we should be losing 1.5 pounds. A lot of the time that might be, if we're going fast, 1% of body weight per week, or maybe it's not 0.5% of body weight per week, but we want to make sure that we are working towards something. A lot of people don't get to where they want to be because they do not have a clear goal, a clear structure, and a clear timeline to that. We want to create some pressure. A little bit of pressure is good. Do you feel better in yourself? That's progress. Health metrics, considered it as well, like we talked about with blood pressure. But scales are very good, but progress photos is something that I use, and we need progress photos all the time. When and how to make changes. Again, this is when your coach will help, but this is what this is for too. Changes will happen just to keep things moving along. If we start to see your rate of loss slowing down, we're not maybe making the progress, we'll make a change from either cardio, step manipulations, calorie intake, training a little bit more, maybe doing a little bit more volume, looking and assessing your training. Lifestyle factors. Do we need to sleep better? Do we need to find time to relax and switch off? Or potentially, even at some point, diet breaks. So if we see, okay, somebody's starting to not adhere, their food, they're looking for food all the time, they're watching YouTube videos of people eating, okay, maybe we need to pull back a little bit and then go again, like we talked about in that 2-phase approach. And again, this is where a coach will be able to kind of problem solve for you, because that is essentially what we are. Mindset with any transformation is based off action and a change in habits. Mindset is so important. It's so important in any facet, but particularly this. The actual physiology of this isn't that complicated, but it's your ability to adhere to it. So really know your reason why. Why do you want to do it? It's not that I just want to lose a stone. Why do you want to lose a stone? How will it make you feel? Some people, they don't want to get naked in front of their partner. That ruins their sex life. That's a big driving force. So be real and honest with yourself as to why. What is your why? And then that will help drive you when things get a little bit more challenging, like they will. But what I also say is embrace that challenge, see it as progress, meet it head on. And when I talk about to my athletes and my clients about building a strong, bulletproof mindset, all this comes into it. Now, this doesn't happen overnight. If you're very new to this whole thing, it won't happen straight away. But implementing small daily wins. So, what do I need to do today to be better? Not to be cheesy, but what do I need to do to be 1% better? Set those daily targets. Give yourself applause for those daily wins. Make it a weekly one. What do I need to do in the next month? What do I need to do in the next year? These small wins, they compound to something much greater than the sum of their parts. So here's some of the results I have, guys. I've worked with, honestly and without any arrogance, hundreds of people over the last 11 years. And I love the art of body composition change. I love the psychology that goes alongside it. And you can see some of the things that we can do with people here. Like most of these, I would say, most of my client base would stay for at least a year to 18 months to really solidify those changes. And, it completely transforms their bodies, transforms their lifestyle, and it bulletproofs their mindset. And ultimately, that's my goal when I work with somebody is I want to get them in the best shape of their life. I want them to be the best person at the end of it as well and take a huge amount away from it and say real good things about me as well. So if you want to get in the best shape of your life and you enjoyed this, give me a shout, drop me a message. We can talk further, or you can book your free consultation. But what I will say when it comes to this is that working with somebody that knows what they're doing, that has that experience, can help fast track your level of results and level of success. So if you enjoyed it, let me know. There's also the one on first timers. This will be up on my YouTube page as well. So if you've enjoyed it, let me know, write a comment, and any suggestions for any more, drop me a message.